Hello, friends. My name is Ted Livermore, and I am here with my good friend John Papa Giorgio. John, how are you?
I'm great, Ted. I'm very happy to be a part of this. I've seen you do these performances a couple times live before. You were very drunk for those, and I think you're sober for this, but I got faith you will kill it still.
Relatively sober. Yes, yes. All right, cool. Well, John, thank you for being here. Today, we're going to talk about the Barbary Wars.
All right.
The reason I wanted to talk about the Barbary Wars here in early 2021 is that Joe Biden has been in office for a few months, and he's already managed to bomb Syria in retaliation for Iran bombing American troops in Iraq. He's also having a little bit of trouble figuring out what to do with US troops in Afghanistan.
I think everyone should be bombed.
The point here is that the war on terror, quote unquote, seems like a uniquely post 9/11 phenomenon. But the reality is that America's so-called forever wars against Muslim countries are really just that. For as long as the United States has existed, we've been at war with the Muslim world, and it starts with the Barbary Wars.
Well, wouldn't you be jealous of that neat headwear? Just look at the photo.
Yeah, so I did want to address two things before we started. One is that I'm going to be using the term day, D-E-Y, to refer to rulers of the Barbary nations. It's synonymous with king. And the second point, which you just brought up, is that a lot of the images I'm using are contemporary from the time and certainly have a Western perspective. So they're not exactly PC. So I did want to acknowledge that.
Like the Bugs Bunny racist cartoons?
There's some racism happening in these paintings, yes.
Okay.
So with that, what the hell is a Barbary?
It's a doll, Ted.
The Barbary states were a loose collection of kingdoms along the North African coast that were semi-autonomous parts of the Ottoman Empire. The most important of these were Tunis, Tripoli, Algiers, and Tangier in modern-day Tunisia, Libya, Algeria, and Morocco.
Okay. You know what they did in Tunisia?
What did they do in Tunisia, John?
Filmed Star Wars. Go on.
For a couple hundred years, the Barbary states took advantage of constant wars between the major European powers to wreak havoc all over Europe. Countries attacked by the Barbary pirates include England, Ireland, France, Spain, Portugal, Sardinia, Naples, Genoa, Venice, Sweden, the Netherlands, Denmark, Austria, Russia, and even poor Iceland was raided by Algerian pirates.
That's you know what? They've got impressive range. I'll give them that. I don't think of pirates wearing jackets, but I guess they did sometimes.
And a cool flag, I have to say.
Yeah. Got a little skull, yeah.
So the pirates attacks, they were so frequent and brutal that Spain and France, essentially, they abandoned all their towns and settlements on their southern Mediterranean coast for like 300 years.
Mm-hmm.
They were serious. But like all pirates, the Barbary pirates were interested in that booty. So they made money in two primary ways. Number one, they would capture ships and raid villages for captives. They would then enslave these captives until ransoms were paid by governments or families. The pirates are estimated to have captured 1.8 million people in raids between the years 1500 and 1800.
I mean, that's a lot. This was a long time ago. We're not that removed from the Black Death, right?
Well, no, this would have been like during the Black Death parts of it.
Yeah.
In the
Also,
beginning.
that guy looks like he's having a great time having sex with that sea captain.
Yeah, there's one of the paintings that's maybe not great nowadays, but
What's wrong with passion?
Second way they made money, they set up protection rackets where they would demand payments from European countries in exchange for a promise not to attack ships sailing under that country's flag or raid that country's territory. So they're essentially a mafia.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So where does the United States come into all of this? Well, by the latter half of the 18th century, England, with a powerful navy and huge empire, had relatively stable relations with the Barbary states. England would pay a set amount to each kingdom in exchange for protection for English ships as well as those of English colonies. This protection extended to the American colonies until we got all uppity and decided that Arby's, guns, and Teen Mom reunion shows was the direction that we wanted to go.
That's why I love Ben Franklin.
As a side note, Morocco, one of the Barbary states, was actually the first country to recognize the United States as a sovereign, independent nation in 1777. So big ups to Morocco there.
Wasn't there like some special name for the treaty? I'm not setting up a joke here. I've seen that Morocco fact on Reddit's today. I learned many times.
Oh, we're going to talk about Reddit here in a second.
Okay, good.
So after the Revolutionary War, English tribute to the Barbary States no longer covers ships from the United States, and the pirates begin to attack U.S. merchant ships. In 1785, the first U.S. ship was captured by Algiers. Now, at this time, the U.S. has no navy, just none, and therefore no way to protect their ships against the pirates. And so the only thing that they can do is pay the pirates for protection from the pirates. So that same year, 1785, the U.S. secures its first treaty with the Barbary States by paying $80,000 to secure peace.
What is that in today's money?
Yeah, exactly. This is in 1785 money. I looked up the little inflation calculators, and they don't go back this far, but it's anywhere from like 30 to 35 times as much.
That's impressive. Okay.
So the problem is these treaties don't last long, because by 1793, 11 more ships have been captured by Algiers, all crew members enslaved and ransomed. So the U.S. decides to try again. In 1795, the U.S. agrees to pay Algiers $642,000 up front, an annual payment of $21,600, give Algiers a 36-gun frigate, and pay penalties if any of these tributes are late, for a total estimated cost of $1 million, again, in 1795 money.
This is a very badass eagle of us, if I do say so myself.
Exactly. But it's at this point when, I don't know if you've met any Americans, but we don't like having to pay money. And so we get sick of their shit. And in 1794, Congress authorizes the construction of 6 heavy frigates to combat the pirates. These are the first U.S. Navy ships ever constructed. So the Barbary pirates are directly responsible for the creation of the U.S. Navy.
I hope they weren't too heavy, because they might sink. Go on.
So I don't know how much you've read about pirates, but they can be kind of dicks. So when the U.S. agrees to these payment amounts, the pirates are still looking to push the envelope, so like how much they can kind of fuck with the U.S. So to deliver the first payment of these tributes to the pirates, the frigate, the USS George Washington, arrives in Algiers. Now, the Dey of Algiers, the ruler of Algiers, looks at the USS George Washington's like, hey, that's a nice ship you got there. I got something I got to do in Constantinople. And so he just takes the USS George Washington, sails to Constantinople to do an errand, and sails back.
That is that's some prison yard shit right there.
Yeah, we can't do anything about it. And then in 1799, when the actual person, George Washington, dies, the Dey of Tripoli writes a letter to the U.S. demanding a payment of $10,000 to, quote, honor his passing.
I'm going to try that someday.
Yeah, hey, I heard your grandfather died. I'd like $500, please.
A very respectable man.
So, the situation, it goes on like this. It continues to deteriorate. But by 1799, all 6 of those frigates that Congress had authorized built in 1794 are completed, plus a bunch more, because in this period, we also got into a little bit of a quasi-war with France at the same time. So we had to build a bunch more ships. So anyways, now we have a Navy. So this emboldens us. And by 1801, the United States declares war on the Barbary States and begins using its new Navy to protect U.S. merchant ships, as well as blockading Barbary ports.
I mean, what else are you going to do with them?
What else are you going to do with them? So from 1801 to 1803, the conflict between the United States and the Barbary States, particularly Tripoli, it remains relatively kind of muted, stable. There's not much going on. That is until Halloween 1803, when the frigate, the USS Philadelphia, under the command of Captain William Bainbridge, is blockading Tripoli harbor. And it sees a ship trying to escape the blockade. So it chases it, but the USS Philadelphia runs aground on a reef, and the pirates are able to capture it. So this completely changes the complexion of the war. Now the Tripolians have 307 American sailors as hostages and a 40-gun frigate that was, quote, a better vessel than they had ever owned. The Dey of Tripoli immediately increases the price he is demanding for peace from $500,000 to $3 million.
I'm still looking at Bainbridge's hair. It's a very modern cut.
The mutton chops, not so much.
Yeah. Was he in Coldplay by any chance?
So this brings us to Commodore Edward Preble, the commander of U.S. naval forces in the area. You like that one?
He loves that scroll.
It's a map, John. It's a nautical map.
It's all olden times, people. They have scrolls and human sacrifice. I don't know. Yeah, go on. Look at those eyes. Dreamy.
So he says of the capture of the Philadelphia, quote, this affair distresses me beyond description and very much deranges my plans of operations for the present.
That's like me. Anytime I get a headache and don't want to go out to party.
Preble wrote angrily of what he perceived to be a lack of enthusiastic defense of the ship, quote, I would to God that the officers and crew of the Philadelphia had one and all determined to prefer death to slavery. It is possible such a determination might have saved them from either.
So they didn't fight back? They were just cool with getting invaded? Is that what we're being told?
They pretty much gave up. I mean, they couldn't sail. The ship was too damaged because it's stuck on the reef. And so Preble's pissed. He's pissed. He's really pissed. Preble also worried that the blow to prestige the United States would suffer among Barbary states. Quote, I fear our national character will sustain an injury with the barbarians.
Do you ever want to risk looking bad in the eyes of a barbarian, Ted?
Well, he's not wrong, because one Tunisian minister said, quote, the Americans are now like the ground.
Okay. How were we like the ground?
Because we walk all over us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, ground does lots of things, Ted. You can grow crops in it.
Sure, yeah.
Make mud pies.
Okay. So, while U.S. diplomats are negotiating for the return of the captured Philadelphia and her crew, Commodore Preble is like, fuck diplomacy, I want revenge. The problem is that the Philadelphia is anchored in the heavily fortified harbor of Tripoli. It's also too damaged, as I mentioned, from its collision with the reef to sail. So Preble decides to destroy the ship so that no one can have her. This is where Lieutenant Stephen Decatur comes in.
Where's his map?
He does not have a scroll. He's not yet a Commodore. Only Commodores get scrolls, John.
I slept through that day in school.
He volunteers to lead a sneak attack by sailing a disguised merchant ship into Tripoli harbor and burning the Philadelphia. On February 16th, 1804, Decatur sails the USS Intrepid, a captured Barbary merchant ship designed for 30 crew, into Tripoli harbor stuffed with 70 sailors. So they're like on the mast, they're like stacked on top of each other, and they're like, we're going to do the sneak attack. Mm-hmm. We're going to burn the shit out of our best ship. So it's widely considered a suicide mission, to the point that they can't, Preble can't in good conscience order anybody to do it, so they have to take volunteers. So all 70 men volunteered to go on this mission. As it happens, they catch the Tripolians in complete surprise and manage to burn the Philadelphia without a single American casualty. So the Dey of Tripoli reacts to the humiliation with fury, because not only has he lost this 40-gun frigate, lost it to the Americans, he had already made a deal to sell the Philadelphia to the Dey of Tunis. So he's out one 40-gun frigate now. It also prompts him to refuse any further negotiations on the return of the Philadelphia's crew who are still held hostage. And so that means the only option is complete victory for one side.
Okay.
Now, I do got to take a quick little detour here on Stephen Decatur. He becomes hugely famous for his action, because you have to remember, this is outside of the Revolutionary War. This is the first war that the United States has been in as a country. And so
we're talking like 20 years later. Something like that.
Yeah, about 20 years later. He also participates in the War of 1812. He's a hero in that. He becomes so famous that 5 Navy ships are eventually named after him, as are over 50 counties and cities in the United States, as well as Decatur Street in New Orleans.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, if you've ever been in New Orleans. Now, the problem is his fame is cut short at the age of 41. Because now a Commodore himself, he is killed in a duel with another Navy Commodore. Now, this duel almost didn't happen because another Navy officer had the opportunity to stop the duel. Another Navy officer had the opportunity to step in and stop it. He had some information that could have called off the duel, but he didn't. That Navy officer, one William Bainbridge, the same guy who lost the Philadelphia to the pirates in the first place.
The dude from the beginning with the puff hair.
From the beginning with the hair, yeah.
Okay.
So he loses the Philadelphia, which allows Decatur to become famous for burning the Philadelphia. And then Bainbridge also has the option to stop a duel that will eventually kill Decatur, and decides not to.
I smell malfeasance.
No, Bainbridge is just a fucking idiot.
Okay.
He's just a useless moron.
I don't know, man. I think he let it go down. Wouldn't you want that guy dead who made his entire bones off of cleaning up your fuck up?
Yeah, he was jealous.
Yeah.
He's conspired.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked if he riled the other Commodore into this action to begin with.
That would be great. The other Commodore was like basically a coward and basically surrendered to the British during the War of 1812. They got into the duel because there was this whole like investigation, and he was acquitted, but Decatur was like, no, fuck that, you're a coward piece of shit. And so then that's what caused the duel.
See, man, these are all guys that had to erase a real hero from the face of this earth.
This is true. This is true. It was a giant Decatur conspiracy. Okay, so Philadelphia burned. Dey of Tripoli, pissed, not going to give our 307 sailors back. He's like, no, they're my slaves forever and always. So the conflict stretches in 1805, and the Americans realize that the only way that they're going to stop it is to get rid of the Dey, whose name is Yusuf Karamanli. So as it turns out, Yusuf, he's kind of a dick. He becomes the ruler of Tripoli via coup against his older brother, Hammett. Hammett happened to be out of the country. Yusuf stages a coup that includes shooting their other brother in front of their mother.
What was the other brother's name?
I didn't write it down, John.
Oh, God damn it.
Should we just stop now?
Give me a second.
So Hammett, who is, I guess, the rightful heir of the throne, he's in exile in Egypt, okay? So that's where another guy with not crazy hair, actually, William Eaton, General William Eaton, comes in.
Okay.
So William Eaton had been U.S. consul to Tunis from 1799 to 1803, so he knows what's up with the Barbary states. As a result of this familiarity, Eaton is chosen to go to Egypt, find Hammett, the deposed ruler of Tripoli, and enlist him to overthrow his brother, Yusuf, so that Hammett can be installed as a U.S.-friendly ruler.
We've never done this before or since.
Well, so we had never done it before, is the thing. We had our training wheels on for this one, right? So let me tell you, John, about the plan to make Hammett the ruler of Tripoli. So Eaton and 7, not 700, not 77 U.S. Marines are going to land in Egypt. They're going to find Hammett. They're going to recruit a Greek and Arab mercenary army. They're going to spend 50 days marching 500 miles through the desert, and they're going to attack the Tripolitan city of Derna.
Who hasn't done that?
It's an action movie montage.
Yeah.
It's an action movie montage. It's so good.
I think this is just Lawrence of Arabia, but a couple years earlier.
So on March 8th, 1805, Eaton and his forces head off into the desert with, quote, a composite force of 300 Arab horsemen, 70 Christian mercenaries, 25 cannoneers, 38 Greeks led by 2 officers, and a 107 camel baggage train.
I'm processing that. Okay. 38 Greeks. I wonder if any of my ancestors were there. Just chilling.
Oh, there are only 8 Americans.
Counting the camels.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. So I'm going to quote heavily here from the book Dawn Like Thunder, Barbary Wars and the Birth of the U.S. Navy by Glenn Tucker. So, quote, the trek began during the Cosman season, a period of some 50 days between late March and early May, when a hot wind from the southern Sahara blows across Egypt in a continuing sandstorm. The fine sand got into everything, including food.
Whatever. Like, you haven't had French fries at the beach. Come on. They're fine.
It's a good plan. They have 7 Marines and some cannoneers and some camel. It's good. So they traveled barely 40 miles, a 2 days journey, when a disagreement over pay caused the camel drivers to halt the march. The drivers apparently did not understand the pay terms and demanded to be paid as they went. As a result, the Marines dug into their own pockets to keep the army moving.
I mean, it happens. Teachers buy supplies for the classroom. Go on.
Okay, so they're 40 miles in. So they only have 460 miles to go.
Yes, they're almost there.
Yeah, they average 20 miles a day, generally on, quote, 2 biscuits per day, rice, and foul tasting water.
Okay.
It's going well.
I hope it was brown rice.
Though Bedouins did show them how to eat wild fennel roots and sorrel leaves. And they did get desperate enough that eventually for meat, they started eating camels, sheep, and a wildcat caught by an accompanying greyhound.
I'm trying to think which meat I'm most intrigued by.
The greyhound meat is the one I would go for.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he thinks he's all safe because he caught you the wildcat, and you're like,
no, sir.
2 for 1. We're going to turducken this.
So on April 9th, a messenger informed the column that Captain Isaac Hull was on the way with the ship the Argus to resupply the force at the Gulf of Bamba. Do you want to know what the resupply was, John?
More delicious dogs?
30 casks of bread, 20 barrels of peas, 10 casks of rice, a cask of brandy, 2 casks of wine, 100 sacks of flour, and 7,000 Spanish dollars. But Eaton's request for more Marines was refused.
Okay.
So they're going to go assault the city of Derna with 20 barrels of peas and 7 Marines.
You know what? Don't count out a good Marine. That's all I'm saying.
The army's ranks, which tended to shrink and grow as Arab fighters left or joined. I didn't include it here, but there's a bunch of mutinies. Hammett at a couple of points is like, fuck this, I'm leaving. And there's a lot of drama. But it finally grows to
fuck it.
finally grows to 700 fighters and 1,200 camp followers. By April 26th, the army had reached Derna and sent a letter to the governor of Derna asking for safe passage through the city. The governor responds, quote, my head or yours. So on April 27th.
Sexual, sorry.
Really? We're going to go there?
Hey, man, I don't know what bargaining and bartering is like in the Barbary states. And it's been
bad they must have smelled after 50 days going through the desert, eating rice and biscuits and foul water and greyhound caught wildcat?
Not great.
That was some stanky dick.
There's your teaser for the episode.
There's some. All right, so April 27th, 2:45 p.m. Eaton orders the attack on the city. Now, the city is fortified by 1,250 infantry and 945 cavalry against Eaton's army of 700. But, are you texting right now?
No. I'm listening.
Are you touching your stanky dick?
I bathed it 3 days ago.
Jesus. Eaton's army of 700, within a matter of hours, Eaton's forces, supported by US Navy bombardment, are in control and raise the American flag over the city. This is the first time.
Is that a dead camel?
Yes, that is a dead camel, because they had 107 of them. Some of them died.
106 now.
Yeah. So this is the first time that the American flag is raised on foreign soil during wartime. And you can see, I believe I counted it earlier, and that's 15 stars on that flag. So 15 states at the time. The Battle of Durna is also the inspiration for the line from the Marine Corps hymn, the official Marine Corps hymn, quote, "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battle in the air, on land, and sea."
Interesting. All right, cool.
Yeah. So this is where we get. There's a bunch of 1950s movies about this, about the storming of Tripoli, even though it's really the city of Derna. But this caper works. So Eaton manages to take his 7 Marines and his Greeks and his Arabs. He marches them across the desert. He takes the city of Derna. Shortly after, Yusuf, the Dey of Tripoli, he offers peace and agrees to free the 307 captured sailors from the Philadelphia, thus ending the First Barbary War.
Okay. Sounds more like a battle than a war, right?
Well, I mean, they were shooting at each other in boats, and there was a whole capture of the Philadelphia, and there's the burning of it, and there's...
All right.
Yeah.
Short war, but we'll take it. Like when we,
you know what,
like
John?
when we did Desert Storm.
We declared war in this case. So that's a step up.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that in just a second here. I do want to go back to, remember Hammett, the guy that we found in the montage in Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah, we promised him he was going to be the ruler of Tripoli.
We did.
Yeah. Once Yusuf agreed to peace, we were like, Hammett, sorry, dude. Here's $20,000. Fuck off. So
I'm sure Yusuf would have been fine with Hammett after this whole silly thing got
sorted. Yeah. That would have gone well. Hammett never sets foot in Tripoli again, and he dies in exile in Egypt. Yeah. So
I can see that coming.
Okay. So that brings us to the Second Barbary War. So after the peace with Tripoli in 1805, things were relatively calm between the United States and the pirates until the War of 1812 breaks out between England and the United States. So the United States is engulfed by the existential conflict, like literally we might not have a country anymore, and the US Navy is focused on defeating the British. So the pirates take advantage of this and begin to again capture US merchant ships in the Mediterranean. So in 1814, the Treaty of Ghent is signed, ending the War of 1812, and President James Madison, he's like, okay, it is time to deal with this pirate fuckery once and for all. So he gets up in front of Congress and he says, quote, "I recommend to Congress the expediency of an act declaring the existence of a state of war between the United States and the Dey of Algiers."
P.S. Enough of this pirate fuckery.
Just remember when we had to get Congress to declare war?
I do, yeah. And now we do it like Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy.
Well, okay, so yes. So this is actually what happened. So in his plea for war, Madison highlights acts of more overt and direct warfare against citizens of the United States trading in the Mediterranean, some of whom are still detained in captivity. Madison basically gives this like beautiful speech. He convinces Congress to not only declare war, but Congress gives Madison, quote, "the authority to take whatever measures he deems necessary," i.e. the continuing use of force resolution that Bush was granted after 9/11, that was then granted to Obama, that was then granted to Trump, that was then granted to Biden. So Biden's still allowed to bomb.
Maybe we'll get it next.
So Madison has the authority to take whatever measures needed. So he puts our boy Stephen Decatur, who's still alive at this point. We're going to bring him back from the grave for a second here.
That is the scroll holder.
No, that was Preble.
Preble.
Decatur's the dude who burned the Philadelphia and then dies in the duel.
Okay.
But this is before he dies in the duel. So Stephen Decatur, he's put in charge of the U.S. Navy. Now, the U.S. Navy, as a result of the War of 1812, it's much larger and much more experienced than it was during the first Barbary Wars. So Decatur takes his fleet to Algiers. He captures a bunch of pirate vessels. He just fucking savagely executes their commanders whenever he captures a pirate vessel. Like he's not about mercy. So he gets to
like real graphic, like Mortal Kombat shit, or
I think he just shoots them. But I could be wrong. But he's not fucking around. Like he's serious. He's pissed because he's already been here. Like he already did this once. He's like, we won this, and now you're starting shit again. Yeah. So he gets to Algiers. The day of Algiers, basically immediately realizes he's no match for this new and improved U.S. Navy. So he agrees to peace on American terms. Now Decatur, he's still pissed, and he remembers all the times the U.S. had to pay a bunch of money for peace to the pirates. And so he demands that the pirates pay $10,000 to the U.S. as part of the peace treaty, which I really love how petty that is.
I mean, that's like barely anything compared to what we gave them.
Yes, there is that. So Decatur then, once he secures peace with Algiers, he then picks up his fleet and he basically does the same thing with Tunis and Tripoli. He just sails in. He's like, "What's up? I will smoke you. Pay me." So that's
a great scene in Goodfellas.
That pretty much ends things. About till like a year later in 1816, when the Dey of Algiers, who had just agreed to a treaty and just agreed to pay the United States $10,000, he gets an idea in his head. And he's like, wait a minute, we signed a treaty back in 1795 that says the US pays me $21,600 a year.
Mm-hmm.
What about that? So he writes a letter to Madison demanding his yearly tribute. Madison replies, quote, "The United States they wish for war with no nation, will buy peace with none." He concluded that it was, quote, "settled policy of the United States that as peace is better than war, war is better than tribute." And so that's the last we hear from the Dey of Algiers on that topic.
P.S. Had it up to here with these motherfucking pirates on this motherfucking boat. Go on.
Exactly. So just a quick recap for you, John. I just wanted to point out that Tripoli is now the capital of modern day Libya. Mm-hmm. And so all the times that we bombed Libya across 5 different US presidents and 3 different centuries.
Yeah. I like traditions. They're fun.
And then lastly, I did want to circle back.
Jacked to be like completely pumped to be bombing people. Like,
oh, Obama's psyched to be bombing people.
Yeah, he's got the biggest bombing smile of them all.
Yeah. While this seems like a lot of bombing, I believe Iraq has the title of bombed by most US presidents, with 6 by my count.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So Libya's got some work to do.
Maybe some YouTubers can start bombing them too.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because during this research, I did need to note this, that for whatever fucking reason, the Barbary Wars has a very weird Reddit rabbit hole that's like this weird, like, white nationalist, like, it's just all these weird memes.
I fucking hate Nazi memes.
A lot of them involve like Sweden being involved in this with the US, and it's like that just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So I just do want to.
Did we use mutant turtles?
Yeah, a lot of Ninja Turtle references for some reason. Okay. So when looking up the Barbary Wars, as I'm sure everybody is running to their computers to Google for more information after this, just be aware there's this weird racist strand of this shit on Reddit. So John, that's the Barbary Wars.
Cool.
Cool. They were cool. That's what you took away from this? It was cool.
Well, I thought I would walk into this, seeing the seeds of our nation building, and you did provide me that, but also I did feel a little national pride, and I didn't like that so much, Ted. When I heard that we beat them up and then took the money that they took from us, I wanted to put on Hulk Hogan's "I Am a Real American," and, which he didn't sing or perform, but that's how I know the song.
Okay, well, there you go. If you ever kill any Barbary pirates, you're a real American.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Wait, this is it? I thought this was just stage one.